Hey everybody, welcome back to A Brief on Grief. So today I wanted to continue the discussion on grief in men. This is part 5, I believe. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about like the healing part of it and some of the strategies that, again, in this book, this is the book that I've been talking about that Terrence Real has wrote about this topic that I've been talking about for a while, and just discuss some of the things that he's pointing out in here in a goal for how he targets kind of therapy and the process behind it. So he outlines, and like I've outlined in some of the other videos, like the defenses of covert depression, they act as like numbing agents for like the deep pain of overt depression that's underneath, right? So the covert depression of the anger and rage and workaholism and addiction, grandiosity, things like that, those are just kind of numbing behaviors that a man can show to avoid feeling the pain that's underneath. And one of the most powerful things that I learned even before I read this book is that you can't selectively numb painful feelings. So when you do things like, whether it's work a lot or drink a lot or eat a lot or binge a lot on Netflix, whatever you do to numb out painful feelings, when you do that long enough, you actually numb out your ability to feel positive, joyful feelings too. So love, joy, creativity, enthusiasm. So again, I'm going to say that again. You can't selectively numb out just the painful feelings. When you numb everything. So when we avoid our pain, we're actually limiting our capacity to feel joy as well. That's a huge thing. That's a huge, huge thing. And of course, like I'm sure all of you can relate, whether I'm talking to men or women right now, anger and rage and frustration is like a way easier feelings to feel for your heart than to feel sadness or loneliness or, I don't know, fear even, right? So those, it's a lot more painful to feel those. And because anger and like rage and things like that are easier to feel and what we people jump to, and especially men because it's the most accepted, they're called secondary emotions. So they're like the secondary covert emotions for the underneath more painful emotions that we don't want to feel. So they say time and time again in this book is that the cure for covert depression is actually the overt depression, the painful feelings underneath. So you have to peel away like the rage and the anger, peel away the addictive behaviors to get to the pain underneath that needs to be allowed and healed. And there's a powerful quote, there's so many powerful quotes in this book, but one of them is the author says, the numbing defenses must be quieted in order to gain access to the man's heart. So that's kind of how they target therapy. So really, like men, this is a positive thing you could say, because the way men are trained in our society to be good tough soldiers, right? To fight for the good of their family, to fight for the good of the woman that they're protecting and their children and all that. When they actually do take the step into therapy or are pondering the idea of therapy, they're much more willing to come in and explore and uncover the pain that they've been hiding from all their lives for the sake of their children. They wouldn't do it if it was just for them, but for the sake of their children and their wives, they would do it to try to prevent the passing of trauma. So in a way, that the way men are socialized, that's like maybe a positive thing that helps them towards getting the help that they need. So another super key thing that this author brings up, again, these kind of messages are going to resonate in me forever in my own personal experiences and everything. He says that depression is not really a feeling. It's like a state of numbness, a state of non-feeling, right? So it's a state we get in when we chronically try to push down the feelings we don't want to feel. And a numbness can look like workaholism, busyness, abusive behavior, shopaholic, eating, all of that stuff. But it's actually one of those numbing agents where we both numb our pain and our joy. So he likes to say that depression is actually a state. It's a state of numbness. So where depression is a state, sadness and grief are feelings. And where anxiety and overwhelm is a state, fear is the feeling underneath that. And it's so key, that's so huge to understand. It's because it's to understand the difference between the true pain and feelings that are underneath some of our behaviors that we use to cover up that pain, right? Or the states that we kind of label ourselves as, or say that we're under when we're feeling anxious or depressed or overwhelmed. Those are actually red flags to our heart and our soul, that there's stuff underneath that we are avoiding. It's not normal for us humans to be in states of disarray like that, in states of stress. Stress is another one. Stress is a state as well. So again, to emphasize, the author says the cure for states is always through the feelings. So you have to you have to know the feelings underneath to allow them to come out, to heal the overall numbingness that you're using. So you got to peel away the numbingness, you got to identify what you're doing, and then there's a clear path to the feelings underneath that need to be healed. And that's the true way of leading to healing. So he talks about the steps of healing is first with the men that he's working with, is that he first works with them to try to identify what their numbing states are, what their behaviors of covert depression are. And once they've identified that, then that tends to uncover some of the pain that's underneath. And then you can use, therapy like mindfulness and learning about different healthier ways of self-love and self-esteem, to bring connection back to yourself, right? So the man is disconnected, like he's been taught all his life to disconnect from painful feelings and to actually vilify any time he's suffering. So he actually learns to hate himself and hate the side that's suffering about himself. So the therapy is about bringing awareness to that pain and the normalizing of that pain, and then to be able to work through that pain to heal it with, the strategies I was just mentioning. So it's huge to talk about this. This journey here so far has been amazing for me, and I have two great things to say right now, and two exciting things to say right now. First, I'm going to finish with a powerful quote. But before I do that, I want to tell you guys that coming up next week, I'm so excited to have Randy Flood here. I'm going to be doing an interview with him. He's the director of the Men's Resource Center in Michigan. So it's it's specifically a resource and therapy center for men, with individual and group therapies. Anyway, I won't tell you all about it because he's going to be here next week to tell you about it. And it's probably going to be a 2-part series because it's such a huge, important topic. And I'm so excited to get his wisdom and talk about this important topic. So to finish with a quote today, another of the powerful ones that are in this book. Boys don't hunger for fathers who will model traditional mores of masculinity. They hunger for fathers who will rescue them from it. Sons don't want their father's balls. They want their father's hearts. That makes me emotional reading that all the time. Thank you for being here, everybody. I'll see you next week with Randy. And be well.